Steppin. 809 Steppin with Marcus J. Live from the Dan Legacy Internet Radio. Thank you, folks, listening to us live on TuneIn and on www.legacyinternetradio.com, and those folks that are listening to us through our replays on YouTube. This next one, I was kind of laughing at this one because, damn, it is funny. But then it's not funny. It's funny, but it's not funny. I'm getting this one from WTVR.com. Tony, I want you in on this one first. As a mom, I want you in on this one first. Again, headline first. Why the government won't let the parents give this baby the name they want to give it. Yes. A couple in Brentwood, Tennessee is suing the state of Tennessee for the right to choose the surname for their son. Kim Sarubi and her husband Carl Abramson named their child Camden Saber, S-A-B-R. The last name Saber is shared by their two older children and is a combination of letters from both of the parents' last names. We had a lot of fun creating the name, Sarubi said. The two older children were born in other states where there was no objection to the newly created surname. But the state of Tennessee won't allow this name Saber, S-A-B-R, on the baby's birth certificate. Sarubi said the day after the son was born, she got a call from Tennessee's Vital Records office. They told her they couldn't use the name Saber because Tennessee law mandates that a baby's last name has to be either the father's last name or a combination of both parents' last name. The family is suing the state with the help from the ACLU. Quote, it's about changing the law. It's an outdated law, is what Sarubi said. It's a parental right to name your child whatever you want. It has no bearing on the state whatsoever, is what Abramson said. The couple has two other children, Alex and Maya. They were born in other states where the combined surname was never an issue. Our first two children have the name Saber. To have two children with one name, but we can't name the other one Saber is just bizarre. State officials, true to form, have declined to comment pending a lawsuit. So, Tony, I want you in on this one first. I'm showing the crew a picture of the cute little baby. Cute little baby. Can't get the name the family wants the baby to have. What you think when you hear the story?
Well, I guess I'll just say it. I don't see anything wrong with it. With the law, that is. I feel like your name is your virtue and your heritage. And you can't just make up names. Like, you can't be He-Man of the universe. Like, you just can't. You can't do that as much as you would
up, man.
like.
Did you see me drinking something, yo?
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Jonathan Edward He-Man.
I'm saying, to me, your name means a lot. Like, I'm that person who, I don't think that, your son or daughter should be named after you. I think they should have their own name that's specific to them and who they are going to be. So, yeah, where do you get that from? That's not a real name. That's not a real person. What's their heritage? What's the lineage? To me, those things are important and they should be reflected in your name.
Big rope.
Quote, we had a lot of fun creating the name, unquote. Really? We just create names now. Look, I mean, I have gone on record as saying that some names are unnecessary. Like, you don't name your kid Porsche. You don't name your kid Mercedes. Well, I guess you could. But you definitely don't name your kid anything else that's just ridiculous. The last name, first of all, I want to go back a little further in who creates a law like this? The law was created for a reason. Now, what that reason was, nobody knows. But it's an interesting fact that they have a law basically saying that the name of the child has to be either the father's last name or a combination of the two. So it's got to be dad's last name or a combination of the two last names. And so it can't be mom's last name?
Apparently not.
First, let's be real. That's crazy in itself. Now, as far as wanting to name the kid a different last name, I mean, personally, that falls under the same guidelines as naming your child something that will prevent them from being positive people in the future. Like, you just don't name your kid crack. It just don't work.
Right.
You don't name your kid reefer. It don't work.
But you can name your child Apple or pilot inspector. I mean, you know what? Here's how I look.
You
at it.
can, but it's dumb.
Okay, it's dumb.
LaDasha.
It's LaDasha, and we've talked about.
I mean, see, I won't even go there
Yeah,
because I was going to offend some people.
I don't care about that.
But I mean, but the thing
That's
about
a
it
dumb
is,
problem.
the thing about it is, one, I think it's crazy that you name your child something that has nothing to do with your name, your husband's name. Number one, and two, the fact that they have a law like this, obviously somebody's tried to do this before on some level. And the state of Tennessee, which is, I mean, I guess it's fair in saying they're a little more southern than Virginia. And probably if we knew where the other two states were.
Even though they're our direct neighbor to the west, but I got you.
Yeah. I mean, even
I got you.
The interesting part is we don't know the other two states where the other two kids were born, which probably were not in anywhere in southeastern United States.
The article does not allude to it.
Exactly. So, I mean, you're dealing with a different type of people, you know?
Well, here's what I think about this. I think you're both wrong, basically. I totally side with the family on this one. Because no matter how jacked up you think a name is, it ain't your name and it ain't your problem. To me, that's right up there with trying to legislate sexuality. To me, it's not your problem. It doesn't matter what goes on with the Saber family. And for us to
But it's
have...
not the Saber family.
Okay, but the children are the Sabers because they made a point of naming all their children with that last name, which is a combination of the mom's last name and the dad's last name. But my whole point here is for us to so we legislate names now. I can't name my kid what I want to name my kid. If I want to call my kid Bumquisha, then I should be able to call my kid Bumquisha, no matter how unpleasing that sounds to the ear of 90% of the population. That's
95.
95, 98, that's a Bumquisha problem. If Bumquisha has a problem when she's 25 and she wants to get a job and she wants to rename herself, then let her go and do that. For us to be legislating how we name children, that to me is a slippery slope that I don't want to go down. Okay, Tennessee has that issue. Obviously, other states don't because the other kids were able to get by. And I'm 100% with these parents on this one. You can't tell me what I can't name. I can't name my kid the way I want to name my kid. And personally, the combination of like this name here, Saber, to me is so like I don't even hear that. Like I don't even see that. Like to me, that's such a minor thing. You know what I mean? It's some of the more creative names that we get in our community, in the black community, sometimes when I hear them, I really do want to look at the mother and the father and I want to go, wow, what were you thinking? But I would never be someone that would vote or sign something that would keep them from being able to do that because that's your right. Just like it's your right to choose your own religion or lack thereof. It's your right to be in love with whoever you want to be in love with. I can't name my kid what I want to name my kid. That's crazy to me.
I'm okay with the first name. Like, yeah, you should be able to name your child the first name. But for example, when people say, you know, my last name, like I'm proud of being a part of that family. And I can tell you about my family's heritage and lineage and where we came from and, you know, who my great-great-great-grandfather was and he did this. If you're just making up something, I just feel like that's important.
I don't have no problem with making that up. You know why? Because my last name is not a name that I can trace. Because if I went far enough back, I would find some white man that owned my family.
As we all could.
Well, not all of us, because there are, you know, pretty much every culture except for us can go back to whatever their homeland is.
When I say us, I mean,
you know, black
brown
folk.
people,
We the only people.
yeah.
You know, most white folk could tell you what family village their people came from in European countries. Mm-hmm. And our Latin brothers and sisters are very proud of their lineage, and our Asian brothers and sisters are very proud of theirs. And so I would think if anybody would support these people, it would be our people. Because shit, Johnson, really? Johnson. Come on, man. Johnson. Which is by far the most popular last name in the country.
Brown.
Brown, exactly. Yeah, I looked up Johnson, you know, when my daughter was born because I went through this. Let me give her a good name. I'm gonna give her a name just like what you talked about, Tony. I want to give her a name that I think is that is cool and represents me.
Did you ever think about giving her a different last name?
I never did, but that's me. That's me. There's a lot of stuff that I would support people's right to do that I would never do. I support your right to smoke crack and be crazy if you want to. Go ahead. Go smoke your crack and be crazy. Just do it over there in the corner, away from me. And I'm speaking in hyperbole, but my point is, you do what you want to do. I think we try too hard to legislate other people's lives and what they do. That's a problem, especially when we're talking about a name, especially when we're talking about black people analyzing people's names. Come on, man. All our names should be X, because we don't know. We don't know. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. 804-402-2893. No, I really don't think that you should be able to smoke crack, y'all. Don't call and email me
But
and
you
think I'm
said.
crazy. Yeah, don't. Hey, I'm speaking in
Hey, man,
hyperbole.
do what you want.
Exaggerate
It ain't my body.
to make a point. But the other stuff I said, I really did mean that. I really feel like you should be able to name your kid
Why you gotta
whatever
explain
you
yourself,
want.
man?
I'm going to explain that because I don't want to get inboxed. Marcus J said that it's okay to do crack. No, it's
Well,
not.
It is
You
okay
know,
for some people to do crack.
you know what? Everybody has a crack. Well, not everybody, but I got a crack story. Y'all want to hear my crack story?
No.
It's really quick. You want to hear my crack story, Tony?
I'm not sure.
You wanna hear my crack
Did you
story?
end up in a pigeon coop?
No, I never did crack. That's not where the crack story is
that'd be
going.
funny,
But
though.
in the spring of 1986, when I was 11, just before I turned 12, there was a basketball player who had gotten drafted from the University of Maryland, and he got drafted to play basketball in the National Basketball Association for the Boston Celtics. After he got drafted, the first thing he did was go and smoke some crack.
I know who you're talking
And
about.
he died promptly. And his name was Len Bias. And from that day forward, 29 years later, I knew that one thing that I would never, ever do under any circumstances, that no matter what you said, was smoke crack. So I could tell you I am speaking in hyperbole, but to make the point, if anybody thinks that, because you know how people take everything you say so literally. 804-402-2893. Say no to drugs. Don't be like Len Bias. All right. Last thing I want to get into in this first segment, continuing with the race card, because you know I like to play it like spades, is we talked last week about Ebola. And we did a whole hour. We had Dave in LA come on the radio and spend an hour with us, and we had a lot of good conversation going back and forth about Ebola. And at the time, there was a dude, Eric Duncan, I believe his name was, who had come from Liberia to America, and he was in Texas, and he had obviously contracted the Ebola virus while he was still in Liberia. He had come to the United States. He went to the hospital sick. They sent him home. Went back to the hospital. Thank you, Ruben. Appreciate it. Your mic does work, by the way. He went back to the hospital, and obviously we know now what we didn't know last week when we talked about Mr. Duncan, that he has since died. One of the things that I was pretty vocal about in last week's show was the fact that he had not been given the experimental treatment at the time of our show. During the preparation of the show, he hadn't been given it to it, but by the time we went live at 7 o'clock, he had been given an experimental treatment. Earlier in the day, the head of the CDC said that they weren't going to give it to him because it was going to make him sick, which I don't know. That sounds crazy to me. But obviously they gave him something. He died a couple of days later. Now, here's where the race card comes into it. We know that there were, and he's a black man, there was two white people that came from America that went to Liberia who contracted Ebola, that were brought from Liberia back to the United States, taken to Atlanta, where they were given experimental treatment immediately, and they have since recovered. It stands to be noted that they were given a treatment, the two of them were given a treatment that is different than what Mr. Duncan was given. They were given treatment and they survived. He was given treatment and he did not survive. Now, it's hard to not play the race card when you see something like this, and here's why. If you know that people are sick in a certain region of the world, why would you bring them from that region of the world to your region of the world? Why not send the equipment and the medicine, everything you need there, so that once you see the success rate, you can help more people there, as opposed to taking sick people from a sick place and putting them in a healthy place? It's just hard for me. You know, I want to know if I'm tripping. And, you know, obviously we got black folk in the room. We're not monolithic, which means I don't expect y'all to share my opinion. If you do, great. If you don't, that's great as well. That's why I wish that we had some white folk that was part of the show, part of Legacy of the Radio, where we at least can have some sort of balance. They may agree with me. Maybe they don't. But at least we can't say that, you know, there's a monolithic thing going on. So, Tony, jump in here first. Sometimes I'm tripping. I could be tripping here. If I am, tell me. If I'm not, tell me. I mean, what are we thinking here?
I mean, I can understand the two white patients being brought back to the States because they could receive a higher level of care. So it's not just a matter of sending the medication they need over there. I mean, you still have to, you know, basically, you know, give them additional medication to help fight with the different infections and the side effects of the virus. So, you know, and they probably have insurance. And I know one of them, the one guy, his dad's like some doctor up in like Massachusetts or something like that. So, you know, maybe they had the financial means to, you know, get the care that they need there. To me, and not saying that anyone deserves any less than the best care available to them, but Eric Duncan was deceptive. And he knew that he was infected when he came here, and who knows how many people's lives he put at risk by doing so and not being forthcoming, saying, "Hey, I was exposed to Ebola." You know, when we went to the emergency room the first time, why not tell them? You know, and I don't think that the hospital did their due diligence in, you know, kind of taking it further, knowing what's going on over there. But I would like to think, and maybe this just helps me to sleep better, that he was given a different medication because of maybe the financial aspect of it. Like, I don't think he had health insurance, so, you know, maybe he couldn't afford the other one.
One thing that I will question you on, that you said that he was deceptive, and that is that's the media line. That's what, you know, a lot of the reports are saying. But I do know that if, you know, I actually saw on the BBC that he was unaware that the woman that he was aiding was, in fact, affected with Ebola. So there's conflicting information with regards to that. Obviously, she was sick, or else he wouldn't have been there trying to help her. But her being sick could be anything versus her having Ebola.
Yeah, but your gums bleeding, like, you know, something's going on. I mean, yeah, you might have periodontal disease, but something is going on if your gums are bleeding. And again, you're in freaking Liberia. Yeah,
but just because you're in Liberia doesn't mean that you have Ebola. And I think that is another thing. I saw a story on one of, I think it was CBS, right here in Richmond. There's a large community of folks that are from that part of the African continent, in that area, not just Liberia, but just that part of Africa. And they're fearing being stigmatized and having retribution, and their families not being treated right just because they either are from there or may know somebody that has since traveled from there. Does not necessarily mean that you're someone that has it. I mean, I hearken back 30 years ago in New York City, you know, when HIV and AIDS was growing like crazy. If you were from the West Village in New York City, you know, they just assumed that you had AIDS. Yeah. I mean, and it didn't matter if you were black, if you were gay, if you were white, if you were straight. If you knew somebody from the West Village, people wasn't trying to kick it with you. So that's where you lose me. They said he was being deceptive. I think that is potentially, and I mean, if you can prove to me that he knew, which you obviously can't do now, but if there's some sort of way to prove that he absolutely knew that this woman had Ebola and he purposely lied about it, then that's one thing. We'll never know for sure. But I've also seen precedent for our country not being forthright with regards to information. Absolutely. I saw an email that was sent from a very high-ranking person in the CDC, which I have no problem showing you, that stated that they knew that there were birth defects that were associated with, in high levels, not in small levels, but in high, not birth defects. You can get sick from a lot of the vaccines that they're giving, and this is stuff that they knew that they chose not to tell the public. So, you know, I'm not going to trust them just because they said it. Big Rube, jump in here. What's your thoughts, man?
If I'm correct, the gentleman who passed away came into Texas.
He went to Texas, yes.
And the other two came into Atlanta.
Yes. Well, they were brought from Liberia to Atlanta. He just traveled here to be with his family. So
Okay.
their reasons for coming are different, but they ended up here.
Yeah, and his family's in Texas, I
Yes,
assume.
yes.
All right.
Just to clarify, yes.
Yeah, just I it's hard not to play the race thing. However, I will probably say this. By the time the other two people got to Atlanta, we had known about what was going on. So I want to say they were almost ready and equipped once they found out, okay, some people are flying from Liberia. Yo, we got to prep this to get ready. Whereas when dude came from Liberia to Texas, it was more of a surprise. Whether he knew or didn't know, whether he said he didn't say, if he said that he came from Liberia to the clerk, provided that person is actually paying attention, I would think she would automatically be like, well, we need to get you somewhere else. However, it's very possible that person could have been brand new, didn't know what they were doing, and, okay, whatever. I mean, but if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, he got past that person and he spoke to a physician of some sort. Am I correct on that?
That is my understanding, yes.
So at that point in time, that physician should have automatically recognized, wait a minute, you came from somewhere else. You need to be doing something else. Or that physician was like, you know what? I'm just going to get you out here before you infect me. It's very possible. It is noted that we are not exactly popular in Texas, us as in black people, or Mexicans for that matter, are very popular.
Black people and Mexicans. Okay.
I mean,
boy, we just took playing the race card to a whole new level just now.
But the funny part is, what about the story that you're talking about? Geraldo Rivera was the one defending, saying that, this is a race issue, and he ain't black.
Well, I'm actually glad you brought that up, Ruben, because I did want to get into that. Why don't you expand and share with the listeners what you mean when you bring up Geraldo?
Well, Geraldo and Eric Bolling from Fox News was having a discussion about, I guess Eric was like, this ain't the race card, and Geraldo was like, really, dude? Are you tripping? This is clearly a race card. Because, I mean, I would hate to say, but I'm pretty sure he has experience in Texas, California, being, Latino. He probably has just as much experience as a black person.
I got the comment right here, Ruben. Geraldo said Thursday that race was almost positively a factor in his death, saying, quote, it was either gross malpractice or it was the doctor seeing yet another poor black man without insurance in the emergency room. I think there's almost zero chance that his race or social class played no role. Bolling immediately fired back, accusing Rivera of playing the race card. How could you do that? I would expect Al Sharpton to bring race into this, or Jesse Jackson to bring race into this. I would not expect Geraldo Rivera to bring race into this, which, of course, Bolling plays the race card in the response by invoking the name of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, which we know are firebrands in our community and incense the core audience of the folks who listen to Fox News.
But he said that because you don't see Geraldo Rivera dropping the race bomb like that.
No.
You really don't. And honestly,
he's a lot more conservative than most folks would think.
And honestly, if you didn't know he was not white, you would think he was white.
Just by listening to him.
Yeah. So for him, that was an interesting response from Eric because he's right. I don't expect you to drop the race car because in the history, that's not something that Geraldo Rivera does. He pretty much goes fact or some fact. Depending on what it is, he
sometimes
spends
when
it.
you introduce race, there is fact base in it because there are lots of precedent of mistreatment of folks based upon the race. And a lot of times, folks, when you say play the race card, that's almost like when you play spades, you throw the big joker down. I got to stop my argument now.
Yeah.
He said I'm playing the race card. Well, damn it, sometimes a race card needs to get played.
Yeah, but I think he said it simply because the dude was in Texas. If the dude went to Atlanta first, we probably wouldn't even be talking about this right now. But the fact that he went to Texas, Geraldo's basically being like, yo, that could have been one of my Mexican buddies or one of my Mexican people, and they probably receive the same thing on a consistent basis, just like this black person did. So I have the ability. He says himself, I have the ability to play race card because that's Texas, and I know they hate my people just as much as they hate black people. And he probably should have just dropped the mic and walked out.
Okay, well,
clearly, because it was a shock to everybody.
Anytime there's a drop the mic moment, I always want to kind of chuckle and laugh here. But
but it was a moment, whereas, you know, Geraldo's been around for 20 plus years, and I don't think he has ever really used a race card in like comparing himself or a victim on a positive. He may have used it, well, you know, because you're acting ignorant and black, that's what I act like. He has done that before, but he's never used that in a defense for the person. So that's why Eric was like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, right. Because that's not his character. That's not what he does.
No, I can dig it. But you know what? I think this was an appropriate use.
Clearly.
Because I brought it up without even seeing that. I mean, I saw that article, but I already had that thought. And then when I saw that article, so I'm glad you mentioned it. I almost forgot to bring it up about that discussion with Geraldo and Bowling there. But, you know, it's very easy for folks who are unaffected by certain things to cry foul when you bring up mistreatment. If you've never been mistreated, then it's difficult for you to see mistreatment. And so I would almost expect someone from Fox News to cry foul when someone says, hey, there might be something else going on here other than this dude just being, you know, misdiagnosed. Might be something else going on here. You think he might have got misdiagnosed because of the color of his skin? You see how they're rushing folks back here, like the NBC guy, the NBC cameraman guy. They got going to Oklahoma. I saw a graphic. It was about 6 people here in America, 5 or 6 people in America who had been treated for Ebola. All but one were white, and the one person that wasn't white is dead. Everybody else is either been treated and is better or in the process of being treated right now and is doing better. So how am I not supposed to play the race card with that one? They ain't know how to step with Marcus J. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk some more. Marcus J, Tony, and Big Rule. Ain't no how to step with Marcus J. Be back.